Okay, it's Friday, January 20th. This is an end of the day and end of the week SPY recap. And you can see today on the daily chart, we end up with a big green day to the upside. We started above the midpoint of the prior day, moved above the pre-market highs, had a 2-up day taking out yesterday's high, and then moved up mostly all session long, closing very strongly near the highs of the day. So this is a day that actually points out two kind of really important concepts that I look at over and over again. First concept being when things happen. And by that, I mean, we had on the weekly chart here, which by the way ends up with an interesting hammer looking bar that looks like it should follow through higher next week. But on the weekly chart, early in the week, we failed that 2-up kind of move early, and we came down to the halfway point of that bar. So at that point, you're anticipating the lows to be, it looks like an outside bar is going to form, and you're going to take out the lows of this weekly bar. But when you're coming into Thursday here, you have one more day to go for that bar to really, to make this bar an outside bar to the downside. So you have your final day. And that's what I mean by when things happen are important, because if you don't kind of reach your target, then that's also another factor to consider going forward. And in other words, if you're expecting something to take out the low of the week, but it can't do it by the end of the week, that means it failed to make its broadening action. And be careful to look, it might happen the next week to continue lower, but it could be the sign of a reversal because you didn't reach your target. And that's kind of what was developing here, this reversal possibility with this very small bar that had a chance to really follow through yesterday down to this target. It was very close. It never made it. And that's why either it was going to do it today or it was going to potentially fail. And it did fail. So that's something to keep in mind when you look at any given bar. If it's expected to go somewhere and it doesn't do it, then get ready to look the opposite way. A lot of times I look at that on the daily chart. Here's an example where, you have a shooter bar here and then you get a 2 down bar. So on this day, you're expecting it to kind of reach that target if everything's really in a downtrend. And when it doesn't, then the opposite trade the next day on the 2 up is really powerful. So same kind of concept here. You were looking more at the weekly chart that was supposed to get down there but couldn't do it. And instead you got the 2 up day on the last day of the week. So you were pretty confident that all of a sudden this bar would fail, the weekly bar, and that maybe you were getting the start of a reversal. And that's what seems to have developed here. And the other concept is, if we look at the way the 15-minute price kind of unfolded during the session, we moved up. We kind of took out first of all, the big sign that this was a possibility was right at the open when you took out that pre-market low and then immediately had a strong hammer bar up. Then you had that classic pause on bar 2, and there was the buy on bar number 3, and I highlighted it. Then as it was moving up, I shot a video saying, look, at this point, either we're going to continue much higher because there's a lot of room to run up here into this gap, or we might fail. And the failure was going to be, and this is the second concept, if we would essentially come below the open of the day, which is right down here, after trying to make that breakout, then maybe we were going to fail and head lower. And if you look at any given bar, when you have a strong directional day, you get your little bit of a movement early on in the day. At some point you start up early in the day, and then you never look back at the opening price, which is right here, kind of at the blue line. So even on this red bar, if you opened here and you kind of went up a little bit, once you started down, if this was going to be a good day, you should never get back above the open. Now, I don't put an exact stop there at the open because sometimes, it can just come close to it. Generally, though, I look at the halfway point of the first bar, somewhere near the open, and when it probes down there, I like to kind of make sure it ends up being a big, strong red bar before I exit trade. So it's not like I have to put a stop in there right at that exact point, but generally, if you're going to fail there, you're going to see some red price action closing up, down, coming down here, failing, and then, even maybe continuing on the next. Then it's real. But in terms of just in general, though, keep that in mind that when you have a good directional day, once you get a little bit of a kind of a just pause at the beginning of the day, then once you start in the direction, you're usually not going to come back to the open. And price was right about here, making its 2 up when I kind of said that, and it never looked back. It kind of went up a little bit more, had your orderly pause, that's all this is, and then a second move up in the day. So classic directional day. So anyway, we end up with a big red bar here, a green bar, I mean. We should continue higher. I'll keep in mind that even though this is a hammer bar, it's still kind of broadening in this whole area on the monthly chart. We're still just inside of this. So even though I certainly expect this month to now stay green and continue higher, especially after this hammer bar in the week, especially after a daily green bar, keep in mind that we still could broaden at any point and start down. But, at this point, given this pretty strong reverse failure to reach our target, we should be heading up here. And maybe we're now going to be heading up to those highs as I was kind of talking about at the beginning of the week before we kind of came down to the halfway point. So big failure day today in terms of reaching its target. Might keep that trend back to the upside towards this area until proven otherwise.